Hi, it's Liz from BioViva, and today I'm here with Dr. Williams to talk about telomerase. If you haven't followed Dr. Williams' work, he's a radiologist. He does cancer ablation and immunotherapy, and he is really a leading medical doctor in the field of gene therapy. He's written a couple books. You need to check them out, especially if anyone in your family has cancer, but you should look at them either way because cancer can happen to anyone. And I am just so pleased to have you here today, Dr. Williams. Thank you for joining us once again.
Thank you, Liz. Always a pleasure. Very,
To
very interesting to get to talk about some telomerase.
Oh, yes, we love telomerase. So in 2015, I underwent a gene therapy that Dr. Williams gave me with two gene therapies. One was telomerase induction, and the other one was follistatin to increase my muscle mass. I'm very happy that I did it. We've gone on to spearhead new technology and research at Rutgers University, trying to get these technologies to you so that you can live a longer, healthier life. Dr. Williams, what can you tell us about telomerase induction? When somebody calls you and wants to ask you about this technology, what do people need to know first and foremost?
Yeah, well, I think obviously the one big thing that people are always concerned with is, what are the cancer risk? Because of course telomerase a lot of times is associated with cancer, but it's really, it's the chicken and the egg phenomenon. So, it's not that so much that having long telomeres and having increased telomerase seems to induce cancer. As a matter of fact, it seems to be probably the opposite. And but it's just the fact that cancer also happens to have long telomeres, but it's not the cause of the cancer itself. Certainly, the other thing with telomerase is that is this one aspect of aging. I mean, before, I would say, I don't know, certainly 5 years, 10 years ago, that was where everybody's main focus is. And just like anything, there's all these pieces to the puzzle. So telomerase is one aspect, and there's going to be many others. And so, I would expect over the years, as we're already seeing, you'll see, different targets added on. It's the same thing we see in cancer. I mean, in cancer, when we target one particular area, okay, you get some improvement. You get some occasional successes. You certainly extend life. You start adding 2, 3. We're actually now using 8 and 10 immunotherapy agents at one time in patients, and that's what it's really taking to see a high percentage of success. I mean, that's the difference between 80 and 90% complete responses versus less than 20% with even single and dual agents. So, but I think telomerase is very interesting, and I think one good thing is that we have you as an example already, and and it's I mean, I'm very interested in doing it myself, which I plan to do as soon as I get time, hopefully by mid next year.
Too busy to do
A
telomerase.
little too busy. Yeah, I've wanted to ask you on that, because I know obviously it's been a few years since I've seen you in person, but I obviously see you on video, and the big thing I noticed, I mean, it just seems to me a lot of improvement in your skin. I don't know if you, I mean, I don't know how it is physically, there in person, but
Yeah, well, I mean, I feel like I have reaped the benefits of the therapy significantly, and I'm actually wanting to take another therapy with telomerase induction because, as you know, it's almost impossible to hit all the cells of the body, and I want to get even more out of the therapy. I think my skin is better. My hair. Since we've gone into quarantine, I am not having my hair cut, and I mean, it is so long now. I think it's as long as when I was in my 20s and thick and full. And, these are things that we see in animal studies. So one of
right,
the answers to the cancer question were there were a lot of animal studies that were done after people thought that maybe telomerase induction would create cancer. But there was not an increased risk of cancer in the animal models. But also on top of that, one thing they had was really nice fur after having the therapy. And I don't think that I could grow my hair much past this area anymore.
Yeah.
I don't remember having this long hair since I was in my 20s.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, no, I think that's the, well, of course, that's the thing. I'm getting very interested in trying, particularly from the skin standpoint, because starting to see more and more effects of that. My wife is starting to point out that I'm getting some wrinkles.
Oh no.
She lets me know.
No.
But so I was like, yeah, no, I've got to start doing something pretty soon. But you know, obviously, it's an interesting area. I mean, one, certainly from the physical, the vanity standpoint, but of course, there's a lot more to it, and particularly, with a lot of the animal studies, and of course, we know that there's pretty good evidence of life extension. I mean, we can only just sort of assume that in humans as well. We'll know in 100 years or so.
And
But
that's really interesting because, we're proponents that humans need to use technology, that we need to use new technology to help humans now because people are dying. Over 100,000 people die every day. And yet we applied for a grant based on some of the work that we did at Rutgers with extending the lifespan of model organisms. And in their response to the grant, they said that, mice in general, their aging is not at all correlated with human aging, that it doesn't really set as a model. And it's so interesting to hear from a granting system lying so close to the regulatory bodies that they don't accept that as a model. So therefore, that is a mandate that humans get involved in these type of technologies. If we don't have a good model for human aging, if humans are the model, allowing people to die of potentially treatable diseases is really unjust, unfair, and unethical.
yeah, so we have the same issue in the cancer front because, of course, like for example, in well, actually, almost all cancer, with the right combination of just a few immunotherapies, we get 100% cure. Yet in the mice, of course, if we take that to
Yeah.
humans, we're lucky if we can get 20%. And so then what happens is, how can we advance our therapies in humans when we're already maxed out in mice? I mean, we're curing all of them, so we can't improve any more than that. So that's where we had to start taking this work to humans, and obviously one, it's a little bit different in cancer in the fact that we've got a fatal disease that we take on patients that are terminal, and we can use these extensive combinations. But yeah, I mean, ultimately for these type of things, people like yourself, myself as well, we have to bite the bullet and be the ones to try it. And I think the thing is that you know I know you feel confident in it. I feel confident enough to actually do the therapy. Um, I don't think a lot of other people that develop drugs would necessarily want to try their own therapies.
I know. I think that that's the most important thing. We actually, everything that we develop, we do. We want to be part of. And going back to 2015 when I did my therapy, you actually helped treat me in several areas that would be cancer, a big cancer risk. And we did it to prove the safety or to show whether it was safe or not. We had our own uncertainties, but we felt confident. And many of the tissues of my body that are high cancer risk, areas associated with sun exposure, breasts, different areas of my body, you treated so that I would be, the perfect guinea pig to show whether or not it would cause an issue. Now, we can't say it's 100% safe, but certainly I've seen no cancer in my body.
Sure, sure. Yeah, and I think that obviously was the first main step, being able to do that in humans, because still look at what a lot of the people who did the animal research, that none of the other groups have really taken it anywhere. I mean, they're still kind of
Yeah,
stuck in a
why does
thinking.
this stuff sit in translation for so long? I mean, that we built integrative health systems in BioViva merely to translate drugs for any company who thought that they had candidate drugs to come forward to help treat aging. And we still have that open invitation. We have a lot of investment funds interested in us so that they can test companies' drugs before they try to raise millions and millions of dollars through the US regulation. Look what just happened to Unity Biotech, senescent cell clearing through small
Sure.
molecule. They had what appeared to be a great win, raised $200 million. They could have come to us, a platform like ours, and found their endpoints before they get started. I'm really concerned about investors losing interest in biotech. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, yeah, I agree. And it's kind of this is the same type of model again that we have in cancer where we're treating humans, and now of course we're getting that data, then we got to reverse engineer it to get it into, a official clinical trial so that ultimately we can get approval. One of the things that we've sort of decided is somewhat to abandon the idea of trying to get approval. We can treat people and get good results. Sure, right now it's small scale, but ultimately we would expand out into more clinics. And the people, different than other therapies, the gene therapy and the cancer therapy that we do is something where a person can fly, they could have it, they go home, and that's it. They don't have to keep going back for treatment. So, the travel doesn't really become a major issue for them. And so, because we've tried approaching, the FDA and other groups, like us to get these type of therapies in studies, and it's just we haven't had any luck.
Oh,
And
I know.
so,
They just say, go and spend $5 more million on animal studies. It's almost like, you can't participate. I think that this is a crucial thing for everyone to pay attention to. That, okay, so one of the reasons that we created the platform is to expedite drugs to regulations, but I guarantee you that any drug that BioViva is behind, we will expedite it to regulations, but we will always keep it available offshore, and I'll tell you why. Because there's 5 regulated gene therapies today. They're considered a one-time treatment to a lifetime cure. 5 of them. That the power of that is immense. The cheapest one is $425,000 to treat one eye. You
right.
get one eye for $425,000 or you go blind. That's not okay. So the gold standard is failing us in a myriad of ways. People can't afford it. They can't afford a cure, but we can't afford to not cure people. The driving cost of aging itself is trillions of dollars. Each one of the diseases of aging, we call those diseases of aging, they're symptoms of biological aging, cancer, heart disease, kidney failure, dementia, they're all $1 trillion diseases. We can't afford them as a society. We have to shift our thinking, and we've got to get these treatments out to everyone. So while they're running through regulations, they should be available to everyone somewhere. And even after they're done running through regulations, they need to be available to everyone somewhere. And that's vastly our job. And so, we are trying to encourage biotech companies to, if your drug is ready, if you have enough meta-analysis that a doctor would get behind it, we can't test everything and can't test anything for certain, but it's time to step up and see if your drugs work. You will get investors initiated, and you will help a lot of people who need those technologies now. It is not ethical to let people die without trying.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's, I think that more and more, now with things with COVID, you're really starting to see this sort of surge in telemedicine, and I think it's going to be that type of thing where people, and we're looking at this type of platform already for cancer where people will engage with us through telemedicine, and then they may be directed to go to, I don't know, Thailand and getting treatment or wherever it may be that's appropriate. And so I think that this is the same type of thing. Of course, again, the regulatory costs are 60 to 70% of what they're charging for the drug is really to pay for what it takes to get to really pay the FDA. I mean, essentially is what it works out to be because, you're not going to get a drug approved without probably having $1 billion to up to $2 billion nowadays
Mhm.
put into it, which a lot of it is regulatory costs. I mean,
Yep.
I, it's been a little while since I've looked at it, but I know previously I saw a thing where I think when you were going into phase 2, or maybe it was early phase 3, where there was like a payment that you had to make to the FDA. I think it was like $250 million for like just administrative expense. I mean, I don't know what type of administration they've got, but it must be pretty expensive.
Yeah, I
So
mean, it's completely ridiculous. And then let's put things into place even more. I'm working on my MBA now, and one of the things that I researched was medical tourism, of course,
yeah,
because that's what I'll want to do my dissertation on. And it today in the US, an open heart surgery can cost a patient upward of over $157,000
mhm,
in just, your deductibles and things like that. I mean, you're going to pay a lot of money out of pocket. In India, they can do the open heart surgeries for $9,000, and the mortality risk is less, meaning that
yeah,
they have a better chance of survival
yeah,
through their system. And so, as I understood it, US providers, insurance companies are starting to pay for people to travel to these other locations. Now, this is pre COVID. But it goes to show you the power of the use of technology. Open heart surgery was not started in a regulatory zone on purpose. Somebody went to Africa to do it because it wasn't allowed. We have to do things, we've got to push things forward. It's not pretty. It's not, how you would, you know, dream something up. But the truth is the regulatory systems have become so risk adverse that people are dying waiting for cures. And I don't mean just to hammer on them. We want safe drugs. I want to run any drug candidate that we have that we know works through a regulatory system to show that great evidence. But I want to do it in stride with investors behind us, knowing that we're going to be a success. Phase 3 has a 94% failure rate. We need to turn that on its head. And how you do that, you find out where the drug works before you go. And the high cost and safety do not go hand in hand, just like Dr. Williams just pointed out. High cost and safety, they're completely unrelated. It's going to cost a lot to treat a lot of people with drugs. Yeah. But that doesn't mean that it's safe. A lot of drugs go to clinical trials, and sometimes people get hurt. And, that's part of innovating drugs. We don't want that to happen. We would do anything we could to keep that from happening. But just because somebody paid the FDA does not mean that that trial is going to be safe for people.
yeah. I think that definitely the system needs to be different, and you're right on that. I mean, the same type of thing. Like for us, like when we're doing our cancer work, so I mean, we've done different combinations, and for a while we got to where we were seeing like 30% complete response, which was good. If you were trying to get a drug approved, you would go that route, and you would be super happy with it. But for us, we knew that we could make some other changes and keep getting better and better. And my plan is, well, we're about close now to where we may try to pursue some sort of approval process. But I was like, until we get to an 80 or 90% complete response, I don't really want to waste my time, because I know that we can make it better. So if I'm at 50% and I start to invest all that money to try to get approval, but easily could have made a few other additions to it and got 60, 70, 80, 90%, then why waste all those years, all that effort on something that's not as good? Might as well wait until I've got something really good.
Yeah, because you have it available to people. What was it? What just got held up in the US regulatory system? A drug just got held up because they want more longer outcome from the last few patients. What was
Yeah,
that?
that was the hemophilia drug.
Is that the hemophilia A?
Yeah, yeah, that was a gene therapy for that. So they want like longer, longer term.
What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think that it's kind of silly, because they're seeing that at least it works initially, so they want to know, well, how long does it work for? before they want to approve it. Well, at least
Oh,
as far as
that's right. That's right. Because they put the same one-time treatment for a lifetime cure that we basically have to stop saying that. We just need to stop saying that. You should not hold up a treatment to a bunch of people who have hemophilia A who need that treatment just because over a statement, one-time treatment for a cure for a lifetime. Maybe it's 10 years, but I really am shocked about the hold up on that treatment.
yeah, yeah, and and a lot of these things, I suspect, if you get deep into them, you might find some other political aspect to them as well. It's interesting how you'll see drugs that improve survival 15 days in cancer. This is, which has been approved, and they get approval, and the drugs are super expensive. I mean, you're talking about a drug that's $10,000-$20,000 a month. It's a pill that only extended survival 15 days, and and you got other things that might be a little better, but for whatever reason they don't get approved. And so obviously the FDA is getting under more and more criticism, and I don't know all the ins and outs of the FDA, nor do I want to speculate for them, but I think people are realizing that the system needs to change, and that it needs to be more focused on what's the benefit for the patient, and not sort of kind of a deal where really a lot of the drug companies, they know that they're the only ones that can afford to go through these processes anyway. So they can just eliminate competition. So they sort of take the good with the bad. They're like, okay, we know that it's going to be a pain to get something approved, but we also know that people aren't going to compete with us.
Can you
And
imagine if your loved one, your mom, your dad, your child is dying of cancer and you're given the choice of a $20,000 a month drug to get
mhm,
15 more days out of their
right,
life?
right,
I mean, it actually, I am on the verge of tears. This is, and this, there, you can go look, those stats are out there. Look at the Cochrane report, look at drug reports. I mean, it's really true. We're spending an enormous amount of money for not much time. And yet in research, the work that you're doing in cancer, the work that we're looking at in longevity is significant benefits. It is literally getting to, in the case of the regenerative medicine, the root cause of why we get these diseases and reversing that process. This is where the money needs to be poured. We need to go after the biological cell in order to stop, halt, or reverse that biological aging so that we don't uh, die of the same diseases over and over. And it's scientifically evident. And, when we look at things like telomerase, just getting back on that a little bit, in mouse studies, the mice live longer. Definitively, they do. They are in ours study as well that we have to do for a new vector delivery method. And mice don't die because of telomere attrition necessarily. And so the benefits to humans could far outstrip the benefits to mice. But you and I both know that the treatment for biological aging will be a combinatorial gene therapy. It probably won't be the one, but that one gene therapy in itself hits the most hallmarks of aging. It hits most of the biological factors that happen with the aging cell that will actually make it younger. Um, to me, it's kind of it's not a big conspiracy. There just needs to be money in translation of medicine. And there's kind of these sort of levels. There's nutraceutical, which is more of like a from plant sort of intervention. And then there's sort of like you go into the synthetic and the manufactured pharmaceutical drugs. And it's another step in it's another whole platform of business. And then you take a next step into the gene and cell technologies, affecting the cells at the molecular level directly. Then this, I believe, will be the platform of human enhancement and where we will actually find medical cures. And that's why we're here today talking about this. Can you explain what
yeah.
telomerase gene therapy is, how it's given, and how it works in the body?
Sure. Yeah, and to add to that, yeah, I would say that the telomerase is your base foundation of anti-aging, and so um, we see this in cancer as well, where there'll be immunotherapy drug that is the one we use in everybody, and then of course when you add on other drugs, so like for HTERT, when you get follistatin or you get other genes that are involved, there could be even a synergy that's significantly higher than either one alone. The additive. I mean, it could double and triple the effect, and so that'll be interesting to see. But I would say, yeah, the biggest, as you say, the biggest bang for your buck is certainly in HTERT gene therapy. And so in the concept, this was kind of in aging, obviously aging was and still is somewhat a mystery. I mean, it's not fully understood, but there were a lot of areas that they were unsure about. One of the big major discoveries was the concept of the telomeres, which are essentially the ends of the chromosome, and sort of you can think of it like brakes on your car. When your car, the brake pads wear down and you get to this thing that starts squealing. There's a little thing that kind of lets you know that your brake pad is down to the end. It's actually warn you. And so the same thing with this, when you see the aging, the cells divide, the telomeres shrink. Now, of course, you can lengthen them with certain ways. I mean, even just healthy lifestyle, but it was kind of considered to be sort of the hallmark of aging, and for a while considered the best way to determine aging. Of course, now there's all the talk with DNA methylation, Horvath's clock, and those type of things. But still, that those telomeres are kind of that key thing that you need. So I think if you did other things that, let's say, there's the idea of inhibiting nuclear factor kappa beta is very, very interesting. I don't know if you've seen some of this stuff. I've seen some work in it, and it was really impressive. I mean, I have to tell you, it looked like magic. So the thing, particularly the musculoskeletal effects that I saw a presentation. It was from a researcher. I kind of think I know his name, but he's from UCLA, and he showed these dogs that they had done work in, and one of the main things was inhibiting nuclear factor kappa beta, and there's certain breeds of dogs that their skeletal systems just go to hell like when they're young, like the basset hounds and things like that. Their spines, are terrible. And so what they did was they did work on these dogs. And I mean, I'm a radiologist, so I'm very used to seeing bones and skeletons and things like that. And they showed the skeletons that looked equivalent to a 90 or 100-year-old person. And then they show these skeletons that look like new, like a teenager or a young adult. And they're saying, of course, that was treating these animals with. There may have been more to it, but part of the aspect was the nuclear factor kappa beta inhibition. And so, one of the key aspects of that, and this was the discussion that we ended up having. It was a big it's an anti-aging group, but this is like the serious hardcore science guys. Are not Sinclair, those guys, but like all just discussing real hardcore science. It was a small meeting in Cancun, and but the thing that we were kind of saying was, okay, you know HTERT, maybe follistatin, and a few other things. That's going to be really good for the aging and the soft tissue structures, the things like that. And we still needed some better areas to ultimately improve in the musculoskeletal side of things. And this looks really interesting. And I'm not sure of the other aspects of it, but yeah, it's ultimately gonna be a combination. And I do think that HTERT is your base foundation. I think for people right now, I mean, this is how I would take it myself. I'm looking to say, well, I know in a few years there's going to be more and more things. Um, I'm I don't want to get, I would like to not get much older than I am right now. But so if I can do something right now to kind of hold things sort of steady, and then, then add on more and more over the years. And that's kind of where I see that, H-TERT really is the overall best option. I mean, I don't see any of the others at this point being, close to it. I think there's pieces, and I'm obviously I'm a big fan of follistatin.
Yeah,
I
do you want to talk a little bit, just in case somebody hasn't seen a video with Dr. Williams before? Dr. Williams took the follistatin gene therapy many years ago. What year did you take the follistatin gene
So
therapy?
it's been at least 10 years. I was thinking yesterday of somebody. Well, there was a researcher that came and talked to me that we were discussing cancer stuff, and we got on the topic of gene therapy, and I was like, I can't remember if it was 10 or 11. I don't remember if it was 2009 or 2010, but I think it was definitely by 10. So I can remember because my daughter was either about to be born or just born, and so she's born in 2009. And so I remember when I did it, I thought, "Ooh, what have I done to myself?" But the guy that came, he's from the U.S., from Washington D.C. actually, but came on to discuss with me some cancer research, and he looked at me. He said, "You took the follistatin yourself, didn't you?" And I was like, "Yeah." He said, "That's why you're so big." I mean, I'm not like big, but I mean, I am muscular.
Muscular.
Uh,
Yeah, I love the that gene therapy. I think we discussed this in one of the other videos, so you might want to go and look at the links below. But there was a recent paper that came out that said, increasing muscle mass in mice with follistatin, they didn't have to exercise and they increased muscle mass. And sure, you're going to increase some muscle mass, increasing follistatin, but I felt like that was a little bit out of line. I mean, you still need to move your body.
yeah,
I just did a podcast with a guy. We got to check this out. He has something called OsteoStrong. We'll see what that is. It puts pressure on your bones, I believe, for 60 seconds, and you only do it once a week. And apparently, people who have done the Ironman competition and things like that do it, and as do old elderly people that our medicine is targeted at. And it increases your bone density and therefore increases your muscle mass. So it could be a really good combination with this therapy.
interesting. Yeah, the only I don't know what this is like. One thing I've seen before is a technology where it puts pressure on the bones in your legs to lengthen them. So you're
Whoa.
putting like external pressure, which then causes the bones to want to grow upwards. And but supposedly it's pretty painful.
Can that work after puberty? Because a lot of people
Yeah,
contact us
this
and ask about height.
this was in adults,
Whoa.
and but you don't gain much. I mean, I think like if you're really dedicated to this and you have to do it like all the time, I mean, at least every day or maybe several times a day, and for like in 6 months, I think you don't even gain an inch. I think you gain maybe 3/4 of an inch, and that might be about the max that you can get out of it. But you know
Yeah,
but
we're probably like you and I are more gene therapy people. We're a little
yeah.
less pain, more gain. Can you tell us what is it like for a person to take telomerase gene therapy? What do they experience? Where what they enter the clinic? What happens?
Yeah, so I mean, the thing is that for gene therapies, obviously there's no real pain. I mean, obviously you do have some injections, so IV, some injections, into the muscles, and sometimes we'll also inject into the face to try to focus therapies in areas where there may be wrinkles, so that because the one things that the patients really want is something visible. It's one thing that you enhance their overall health, but if you can put a little more focus on the physical aspects, that certainly makes people happier. So and that is obviously the equivalent of like getting fillers and Botox and those type of injections. It's a little uncomfortable, but it's nothing nothing significant. And really the main thing that the patients feel is that sometimes the first day or two, they feel a little bit of, like fatigue. They feel, maybe not quite like flu, but like almost like, they got a mild like cold or something, but no, without respiratory symptoms, just a little bit of maybe achiness. And then that goes away pretty quick. And then that's really the main issue. So it's overall from a patient experience, it's certainly pretty good, certainly way better than what our cancer patients have to go through. That's for sure. So,
Right, because
but,
they're already feeling sick.
and these
And
are these are even less than like your typical cosmetic surgeries or things like that. I mean, this would be, again, it's like the equivalent of doing, fillers and Botox.
yeah, I know that a lot of people just opt to do the IV, and we've had a couple of
That's
testimonials that were from through IHS back to BioViva about IHS that were almost kind of embarrassing. They were like, "Wow, so easy."
Well, that I doing IV only is very easy. So it's really, it's the same type of thing like when people get stem cells and other stuff. You really don't feel much of anything with it. And the one thing patients do need to understand is that the expression of the gene kind of ramps up. So and also the effect. I mean, you can't really expect that you're going to get a gene therapy and then 2 weeks later you're going to look 10 years younger. It
No.
doesn't work that way. It's a very slow process. And a lot of it, certainly from my experience with follistatin, the first 6 months I saw nothing. I mean,
Yeah, I think that I think like with me, I saw a muscle increase in the first 6 months, and you were surprised when we took those MRIs and showed that. But as far as the visual appearance and telomerase, I feel like it changed over a long time. I'm not sure,
yeah,
it seemed like people say, oh, you look younger now, but the first year
yeah.
after you didn't.
I would agree that, like I would say in your case, from what I've seen, that this is a process over years, and that it's just been kind of a gradual change to get to where you're at now. I mean, I would say that you look younger now than when we treated you. So,
That's good news.
it is.
When a couple of years ago, when I talked to Vanity Fair, they asked me if this was aesthetics, and I said, this is not aesthetics, this is survival.
Yeah,
And I know the allure of helping people. I mean, if you don't look younger, you're dying of aging.
yeah,
So so it's a combination which I think that people are going to really like for the future. So there's always been the separation. There's, medicine that treats disease, and then there's cosmetics.
yeah,
This is the combination of those two, because if your skin looks old, you're dying of aging.
yeah, yeah,
So this is going to be a big shift in our mentality and how we think about medicine and aging. But I think it's a shift that we don't have to think too much. We just need to step right through. People look younger than they have ever looked in older age today than, of course, we have in the past. But this is just going to be, I think it will be kind of like, I don't think we're going to skip a beat. I think people are just going to look youthful for decades.
yeah, yeah. I agree, and I would say that from my experience, how follistatin has changed my life completely, because I can tell you that when I did follistatin, I was in a situation where I was working a lot. I was eating mainly in the hospital, which hospital actually has very bad food. And, I was
Yes.
getting a little bit overweight. I mean, like, my waist now is like a 31 or 32. At that time I was a 36, or I could probably even wear a 38 if I really wanted to, but about 36. And normally, even when I was just kind of like somewhat normal, so I was like 34. Um, and even though my weight was not terrible, I mean, right now, I mean, I'm a little bit less, but of course, with the more muscle mass, that weighs more, so you lose the fat. But that really changed to where it made the idea of eating better just made more sense. I getting some exercise, unfortunately, right now with COVID, because I'm in Mexico City. Our gyms and everything are still closed here, so don't get to do any of that so much. But doing exercise, just trying to be healthy, it was yeah, it was a significant motivation to do that. Whereas I think if I'd never done the follistatin gene therapy, I would have gone down a path of just gaining more and more weight. I mean, who knows where I would be right now? I would probably have, heart disease. What would I guess that follistatin has changed for my longevity? I mean, I would say definitely 15 years of,
Wow.
of life, and it could be a little bit longer than that.
Well,
Um,
yeah, I mean, as humans, we eat and conserve, right? I mean, what other animal goes and runs on a treadmill just to stay in shape? They're not doing that. But after a certain point, we have the same hunger as when we were in the grow and go mode, and yet our body is only growing in the wrong ways. And we're asking people, we're shaming people. I mean, number one, hospital food is a complete podcast in itself. And I just cannot figure out why hospital food is so bad when you're in the hospital. But outside of that, let's just get back to everybody else's life. No matter where you are in the world, your desire is to eat, your desire is to conserve. We've got people who are grossly obese, and we're asking them to go out and get in shape, and do things that are really uncomfortable for them, walk into environments where other people are in shape. There's a lot of ego to be let go to get there, and we need to help people get there. And if we can do that through an injection and
yeah,
significantly increase their ability to become part of an active society and want to do things, I mean, it's kind of a mandate. It's a social welfare system as far as social health,
yeah,
you know.
yeah. Yeah, it's but I would definitely say that with the follistatin gene therapy, it gives you an advantage, and it's, I mean, you think about um, obviously athletes and other people that, well, whatever profession it may be, but they're trying to get every advantage that they can to be champions. And follistatin again is another advantage that you can have in life to be healthy. I mean, my wife is, she's younger than me. She's in very good shape. I mean, she's like fitness model type shape. And but yet she she says her metabolism is nothing like mine. She doesn't, obviously, in the gym, she doesn't gain muscle. I mean, even though she's female, but she knows that I can do very little and stay in shape, and she has to work 10 times as much. So um, which
Yes,
that
she has, a healthy, youthful body. And, I mean, there is an attraction to youthful, healthy bodies because it's a body in better physical shape. It's healthier. It's a state of health.
yeah,
We yearn for that as people, and we want everybody to have that. We Aging is the most visual disease on the planet, and it cuts all the way through you. I used to do talks where I would show an aging brain compared to a young brain. So we look at people, we judge, oh, you must be this age, you're about that age, oh, you look good for your age. If you look at aging brains,
mhm,
uh, a brain of an 86-year-old, we had a slide for it, who does not have dementia compared to a brain of a 24-year-old or 26-year-old person. It's vastly different. Everything is changing. So when you look at yourself and you say, oh, I'm aging a bit, you need to think about your whole body all the way through. It's happening to every single one of your organs. It's just not your skin. I'm not trying to freak you out. I'm just trying to say we need to be motivated. We need to not be risk averse. We need to go forward and solve this problem because it's a conundrum for all of us. It's not just for me. It's not just for Dr. Williams. This is something that we're all suffering with, and in time can create a lot of possibilities for the future. The whole industrialization of nations is based on time. It's based on lifespan. How long people live defines a country. If you look at countries whose lifespan is increasing, those countries start to step up in the world. They start to get more ability from their own technologies and other countries looking to them for work, because there's a trainability and workability mode where you can train somebody and they can work long enough to return your assets. This is an important part of actually innovating in the world, is lifespan and creating new technology. So this is definitely technology for everyone.
Liz, I think I'm gonna have to go and start doing some consults.
Okay, Dr. Williams has to get back to work. He's got to go save people's lives who have cancer, and we absolutely honor that and appreciate that. Thank you so much for being with us. If anyone's interested in any links, including the cancer work that Dr. Williams does and his book, you'll find it in the links below. Please like and share us. People are ready for good news and good information. So let's get rid of the negativity and move in the positivity. Have a great week.
Thank you, Liz.